I saw a movie last week called Samaritan. This is a Sylvester Stallone vehicle action film. So I think it's based on a real comic, right? It's about look, okay, let's play a game. I'll tell you the basic plot, and then you tell me what the twist is, okay?
Okay.
You're gonna figure it out very quickly.
I've heard nothing about this movie.
Good, perfect. Okay, so I don't know, 40 years ago, there was a superhero. His name was Samaritan. And he's like Superman, but maybe not quite as crazy, overpowered. And he wore a mask. And he had a twin brother who, like, at first they were like on the same team, and then the twin brother became like the Cain to his Abel. And his name was Nemesis. And they fought in a chemical plant, and Nemesis was killed. After Nemesis created some kind of hammer they put all of his malice into, a la the One Ring. And so Samaritan's one and only weakness is this hammer, but he killed Nemesis and then he disappeared forever. And so now the lore is like, will Samaritan ever come back should the city need him again? What is of course, so it's 40 years later, he's like an old man, and Sylvester Stallone. What is the twist?
It's Nemesis.
Samaritan died. Nemesis survived. But Nemesis turned away from evil and is now the hero. So the movie is, pretty basic, and it really as evidenced by that twist, and it really falls apart in the third act, in my opinion. It becomes kind of like cheap A24 CG. So they end up having like a giant battle in a building with it's like on fire, and suddenly out of nowhere, Stallone starts dropping one-liners like
oh, wow,
too
really?
hot for you and stuff like that. Like just too self-aware at that point. But everything leading up to that it's about like an underprivileged kid living with his mom who falls in with a bad crowd, starts like hanging out with a gang. And then, like, he starts getting, in big trouble, gets involved with crime. He starts getting threatened by, this violent group of kids. And Samaritan, like, intervenes when he really doesn't want to intervene. So it's, like, kind of that trope of, like, you're not going to make me do this, are you? And it reminded me of there was this formula with superhero movies that we stopped doing a long time ago. But it's kind of like what makes superhero movies, which is you put somebody vulnerable in peril, and you get to the point where like this person is really their only hope is the superhero, and you have that in the back of your mind while you're watching it. And so as the audience, you're like just dying for that superhero to come out, because if they do, then we're solid, then they're going to be saved. And so then you can play with the suspense of like they're just about to get killed, it's totally hopeless, the superhero either hasn't heard from them or they're indisposed or whatever, and they finally come out and it's a big cheer moment. And then they'll do it again later in the film, but this time like the superhero gets one-upped when you thought he could, because the villain got smarter or whatever. It's just that over and over again. And Stallone is such a movie star, even at 80 some or whatever the hell he is, that he's still big and burly and funny and cool. He's cool. He if you were saved by him in an alley, and you followed him home, it would be cool. He saves like a little girl by like holding a car up, and blocking like some flames or something. It's so I don't know and he teaches the kid like don't fall into crime. We're all good and we're all bad, but bad is a choice and good is a choice. And so it's like it's got pretty good morals, basic, totally tropey, but it reminded it's like at some point superhero movies got so postmodern, they became so multi-genre. It doesn't even know what the fuck it is. It's got Kevin Feige as an AI in it. But it's just to watch something that's just like, I think Sylvester Stallone, I don't know how much he was involved with the creative on this one. I think he wanted to get it made. Ever since Rocky, man, I think, and he's had a lot of missteps, no doubt. but kind of like a James Cameron. You know, like James Cameron obviously really understands human beings.
Yes.
Because if he didn't, he wouldn't be able to make like billions of dollars every time he makes a movie. Stallone's the same way. Stallone kind of like, or George Lucas. You know, like George Lucas is kind of like socially a little bit inept, but in terms of like myth and story, he seems to really understand. He has like a really careful understanding of what the power of myths. I think Sylvester Stallone is the exact same way.
Yeah.
I think like with Rocky or even with Rambo or, a number of other examples, he taps into like, this is what a human being wants to watch.
Yeah, he definitely has that kind of intelligence for storytelling in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he gets under the skin.
And he embodies it too. That's
Yeah. He's a really, really good. I mean, obviously he's a really weird actor, but I think he embodies something magnetic. Like I would hate to see him on like a streaming TV series or something.
Yeah.
It would all fall apart for me. He's a movie. He's a movie star, and I don't want to sound like a snob or well, it's a little late for that. But I don't want to. Tarantino gets a lot of shit for digital versus film. I'm watching this like very kind of digitally graded Sylvester Stallone movie that got sharded out onto Amazon Prime, and I'm thinking like, even this basic ass movie should have been shot on 35 millimeter and projected on a film projector. And it justifies your trip to the movie theater, I think. Yeah,
especially like I said, I rewatched the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and there is that warmth to it, and it does. I mean, probably because I was trained on this 35 millimeter. It's like it speaks movie to you because that's what I've been brought up with.
I actually had to. I'm going to be on this podcast called Binge Movies in next weekend. I was invited, like I don't know anything about the podcast, to be honest. They came across the Cinemassacre stuff, and they invited me on the show last year. I don't know, 7 months ago or something. They book out like really far in advance. And the gimmick is that you're supposed to binge watch 5 movies from a given year. So they had me do like the top like 6 through 10 grossing films of 2000. So it's Meet the Parents, What Lies Beneath, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Did I say Meet the Parents already?
Yes.
X-Men and The Perfect Storm. And so I had to watch all of these films. X-Men, I didn't have to watch too attentively. I remember it pretty well. But the other ones I either hadn't seen or didn't remember them very well. Like I saw Perfect Storm at the time because that was a big deal around here. It was like because it takes place in Gloucester, and
right.
My dad honestly didn't know those particular guys, but he knows like that whole. He used to be a fisherman in that area. But anyway, like Meet the Parents, like shot on 35, no color grading.
Yeah,
man, it makes a difference.
Oh yeah,
it really, and it's Robert De Niro. And it's not stunt casting. It's like he was cast as the character. And he's taking it seriously. And Ben Stiller is really comedically strong. But the thing about that movie, and I'll talk much more in depth on the show, hopefully. But the screenwriting is tight as a drum, man.
Yeah, it's a great script, and it's great comedy.
They figure out what the stakes of this. They figure out what it is that this movie is first and foremost. They're like, this is a movie about that thing we've all been through before.
Life or death.
Where you show up and it's just not working out with these, or things aren't going right, or your cultures don't mesh or whatever. And it takes it to kind of zany levels, but I think it's set up, maybe with a couple of minor exceptions. It set up every single thing that was going to happen in it, every single problem, every stake in the first 20 minutes. It's like it's all laid out.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. That's a very good thing.
That movie's hilarious. Very quotable too. Like, I have nipples, Greg. Can you milk me?
You want to milk me? It comes from a place of like authenticity with that actor. Yeah.
There's some like filmmaking stuff like where they're in the car and they have the cameras outside of the vehicle. Like, it looks really good. Like, I remember thinking it looked like really natural. At the time, the way they
just like little economic things that it does yeah, like in the opening scene, he has her. She's a teacher, and he has her kids trying to put together the "Marry Me, Pam" sign, and they can't quite read, and they're getting it messed up. And he's trying to signal to them, but then she's like, well, my dad likes to be asked these things, and he has to kind of cancel it quietly,
Yeah.
So like the whole movie was about to not happen, and then it happened. I think it's genius to be like, the first problem the guy has is that his luggage is lost and he just doesn't have his goddamn clothes for the weekend. Like it just totally puts him on the back foot the whole weekend. So good. And X-Men's X-Men. They built a really strong cast that would last, decades.
Yeah. Still showing up in movies. And Deadpool.
Perfect Storm. I forgot how good the cast was for Perfect Storm. It's Mark Wahlberg, George Clooney, John C. Reilly.
Jesus.
Yeah, William Fichtner.
I saw that too, and I think I didn't recognize anybody.
Yeah, at the time I probably didn't, because Mark Wahlberg was kind of up and coming, and like John C. Reilly wouldn't become John C. Reilly until like Step Brothers and Dewey Cox, and I mean he was like a Paul Thomas Anderson actor basically. He was in Magnolia, he was in Boogie Nights,
right?
But that's a pretty good movie. I would say the first act in particular was really strong. And at some point it devolves into special effects and storms and stuff. And I don't, I think I remember at the time the big thing was like, this is the first movie to combine computer generated water with real ass water. That was their big thing.
I remember it being a big deal. And I remember my eyes glazing over in the third act.
Yeah, big time. But all of these movies, they really, what else? Well, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. My God, I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. It's completely
a nightmare.
It's on crack. I don't know why he's Daffy fucking Duck or he's like Urkel. I'm like, I thought it was something that's kind of interesting is in the new 2018 one, he's depressed, and in that one, he's manic.
Yeah.
Because you have to come up with he's going to be your protagonist. You're going to stick with him. It's not 20 minutes. You're going to stick with this guy for an hour and a half. So it needs to be explained why he's such a curmudgeon. And so like in this one made some bizarre choices. Like,
yeah, the set design is like weird. It's like dark.
Yeah, it's like all soundstagey, like super soundstagey. And he doesn't steal Christmas until the third act. So they tread water for like the whole movie.
Yeah.
They got him, Cindy Lou Who, like really invests in him as a human being. And she's like, we're gonna make you like Christmas, and so she tries to give him some award. Everything is an excuse for a physical gag. And I'll give Jim this, man, because it was clear that he wanted to act through that makeup. That dude is earning his paycheck. He is like inventing these little physical gags and these little, I mean, it's just too much. It wouldn't be a good movie for Gloria, I don't think. And we saw What Lies Beneath, which is the Michelle Pfeiffer, Harrison Ford kind of like PG-13 thriller by Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah.
Is pretty dull. I don't think.
I think I've seen that one too, and I don't remember anything.
But it was it was in the top 10 grossing that year, and Castaway was like number 2. So Bob Zemeckis had 2 movies. James Horner did the music for Grinch, and he did the music for Perfect Storm. Like Universal with like Ron Howard, Brian Grazer, like they were responsible for like a bunch of movies in that era. You look around, you're like, wow, there really was like a regime, like in 2000 of like there's like a few people who were really making movies.
And it's really interesting the variety in those movies too. Like it's now it's just all superhero movies or I guess Top Gun Maverick, but.
Yeah, that's insane how much that, I mean, that's the number 1 grossing film this year.
Yeah, and it's like
by a long shot.
By a lot. There's no competition.
That tells you something, doesn't it? Like it outperformed like Jurassic Park Dominion by like a mile, and that's the number 2 movie.
It's like I think people just want like, I don't know, some basic shit with a movie star sometimes.
That's the thing is like they used to go to the movies because Michelle Pfeiffer and Harrison Ford were in it.
Yeah.
And now there's just not a lot of that.
Maybe this is just that Top Gun's last gasp, or maybe Hollywood's missing something, you know? You never know.
Hollywood's definitely missing something. I mean, you watch like, I didn't even watch like Jurassic Park Dominion, but I can tell that like that movie has no clue what it is. Like no clarity of mind at all.
Yeah, I mean, I watched Jurassic World, and that was enough. The first one, the fourth one.
I'll say this, man. There's like a ton of kissing in these movies, tons of it.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
it is kind of interesting. Like even like She-Hulk, where it's like, oh, like she's having sex all the time off screen, sex. But I'm like, it feels like not that.
She never has like a long
affectionate.
kiss with somebody, right? Yeah.
It doesn't feel as affectionate.
You would also think like, oh, back then there weren't nearly as many. There wasn't as much competition for your eyeballs, so maybe people went to the movies a lot more often. Granted, there's been a lot of inflation since 2000, but the movies made way less money. Like the highest grossing film was like 500 million. They made way less money.
All that stuff goes to streaming now.
Or like X-Men's an hour 45, right? They're all PG-13 or PG. There's nothing R-rated. So that was back. Remember, like the old conventional wisdom was like you can't gross much with an R-rated film.
Right. And then Passion of the Christ came out.
Jesus came again.
Bled everywhere.
But it's definitely it was a very interesting. It might be fun to do this again sometime. To maybe like pick a year. And go with the highest grossing stuff and see like what was capturing the culture's attention at that moment in time, and comparing it to now, because 2000 just doesn't seem that long ago, but culturally it really was.
Yeah, just listing those movies, it's definitely a different era.
People rushing out to go see The Perfect Storm. That movie would fucking bomb now, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It would. Barely make anything. And the things that do capture people's minds are Netflix things. Like you'll see Tiger King, or now Dahmer. People are talking about Dahmer, Jeffrey Dahmer.
That's a good point. Yeah, these like these series that kind of pop up and capture the culture's imagination for making a murderer or whatever.
Yeah, House of the Dragon, I think, is doing that now too, and Top Gun, Top Gun did it. The only movie.
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.